Thank you for clicking on today's video. Today, I would love to answer the question, why did God choose Jacob instead of choosing Esau? And this question is a question a lot of people have asked, and I believe there are numerous answers online. But in case you have not even found anyone that you find quite suiting, I believe this might help you one way or the other. But if you can't, continue your search, right? But let me try as much as possible to answer the question in the best way I can. So yeah, let's get into it. Why did God choose Jacob and neglect Esau? First of all, a lot of people read it from some versions that say God hated Esau, but that is not the case, right? The point is not about hatred, because why would a good God hate somebody that is not born yet? That doesn't just make sense, right? Some translators are not doing justice to that. So let's get into it fully. Why did God choose Jacob instead of Esau? Before I answer that question, there is also something important for us to know, and it's that why do people ask this question? And the reason why I'm saying this is because whenever somebody comes to me to ask questions about tithes, I want to know why you're asking that question, because the why determines the kind of answer that you want. For example, somebody that is asking about tithe, is either you don't want to pay tithe, or you want to pay but you don't want to pay some certain amount of money, right? Or probably you just want to know if it is right or not. Whatever reason you're asking that question will determine the kind of answer that you want. So why do people really ask this question relating to Esau and Jacob and God's choice? So number one is because they believe God is partial. They believe that God did partiality there, right? And they are trying to find a way to bring a balance to it. That why would God be partial? Why would God choose people over another person, right? It's just like saying God chose Israel and then decided to destroy the rest of the world, right? A lot of people say that as well. So we are going to understand what choice or what God choice necessarily mean. Another reason why people ask this question is because they get curious about the idea of predestination. And there are a lot of people who have this idea of predestination, that whatever it is that you're going to become has already been written, and there's nothing you can do to change it, right? And I do not believe in that concept. In fact, there is a sect in Christianity who believe in the theory of Calvinism, and what that literally means is that they believe God is sovereign, meaning that whatever it is that is destined about you is what will be, according to the Calvinistic ideology. So, but that narrative doesn't stand, because majority of the things that you see in the Bible still goes against it, right? Is that people have a choice. People have the choice to decide whatever it is that they want, not because God is sovereign and He imposes on people's destiny. Why will He call Himself a good judge if He has destined others to fail, or destines others to go to hell, like stuff like that, right? So, but I'm not here to talk about Calvinism. I'm just here to talk about the choice of God when it relates to Esau and Jacob. So the second point, just like I mentioned, is that people are curious about predestination. And so now that we have those 2 points in check, let's go straight up to answer this question. I don't want to waste much of our time, so let's go straight into answering the question. Okay, when we say God chose Jacob, the question we are expected to ask, or the follow-up question should be, he was chosen for what, or to do what? For example, if somebody is chosen to be a prefect, there must be a particular title that has been attached to it and a particular job description attached to it. So when we say Joseph was chosen, when we say Jacob was chosen by God, he was chosen for what assignment? That's the question that we need to ask. And he was chosen by what criteria? Let's look at it practically, that if we're going to compare in terms of character, who is better between Esau and Jacob, we can still give a little bit edge to Esau from the context of the story, right? We can give a little bit edge to Esau. Look at the few things that Jacob did. In Genesis 27, Jacob deceived his brother for birthright. When he was about to get the prayer from his father, which is Isaac, right, he as well deceived his father. So deception has been in his blood. Deception has been a character of Jacob, right? He has been deceptive for a very long time, that he could decide to put animal hair on his body so that when his father touched him, he can feel that he's hairy. It took a lot of stress and a lot of time to be able to put that together, right? For him to be able to wear his brother's clothes just to bring deception. If you try that in this time and age, you would see that you can be persecuted for it, or you can be jailed for it, right? So what he did was great deception. Great deception. Aside from that, he tried to cheat Laban for his daughter, right? I understand that he was giving Leah instead of Rachel, but come on, don't tell me you didn't know that this is the person you were sleeping with. Like, come on, don't be like that. You can't tell me that you don't know. Right? So that was a deception there as well. He was trying to be deceptive there as well, He was trying to be cunning. So he has this character of being deceptive and being cunning. In fact, his wife stole his strange God. If you read Genesis 31, when he was escaping Laban, his wife also stole a strange God. And you can say that, okay, that is his wife. It doesn't really concern him, right? But his wife is still part of him, yeah? If we are looking at it in the long run, his wife is still part of him. So it is still within the context of his control. Do you understand? So I think based on character wise, Esau was still better. Though the Bible didn't give us full idea of what Esau did and what Esau did not do, but we know that Esau got angry that he wanted to kill his brother, but Jacob ran away, right? However, we saw that Jacob, in terms of characteristics, was worse compared to Esau. Now, you can see that based on the choice, it was not because of characteristics. Now, let's look at another thing. Is that if you look at it in the long run, that the blessing that the Bible was speaking about was not necessarily material blessings alone. It was a blessing or a choice of who is going to be the lineage of Jesus, who is going to play a role in which Jesus is going to come through their dynasty, right? So between Jacob and Esau, somebody will be the one who Jesus is going to be in their line of history. That is like the promise. That exactly is what it was chosen for. And if you also look at in terms of material things, when Jacob and Esau met themselves and they wanted to reconcile, you would see that Jacob gave a lot of things to Esau, and Esau was like, I already have enough. Esau already had servants, he already had wives, he already had a lot of things. It was already established as well. So it was not necessarily about material things, because Esau also had material things, right? So it was not really about material things. And if you look at Jacob as well suffered for 14 years at Laban's place. Laban also tried to cheat him. Imagine being in the house of Laban for 14 years, toiling for him, and then working another few years just to have your own inheritance. I don't know if you understand what that means, but if we are thinking about it in this time and age, that you are staying in your father-in-law's house, and I can't even think about it, right? The kind of suffering that he has to go through, the mental suffering, the labor suffering that he has to go through, and a lot of things, right? We would see by default that even if we didn't fully understand what Esau went through, but we can see that Jacob didn't really enjoy at some point. In fact, when he met with the angel, he still had to have a limping leg, or the angel had to touch him, and then he became disabled at some point, right? So there was really nothing so spectacular about Jacob, as it were. We are going to be sincere with ourselves. So what exactly is the choice? Just like I mentioned, there's a promise that God made to Abraham, and the promise is this: he's going to build nations from him. What Jacob is fitting into the system is that Jacob becomes a part of the ancestors that in which Jesus can come through. I believe you understand what that promise is right now, that Jesus will come through Jacob's lineage. And if you look at the sons of Jacob, Jesus came through the tribe of Judah, and Judah was one of the sons of Jacob. So that is majorly the promise, and that they are the chosen one of God. Now you cannot ask, now you probably ask the question, so why did God choose him? I really do not think there is a major why. For example, let's assume that I have this mobile phone and I have same identical mobile phone. I have the two, and I decide to pick one. I should not have any reason for picking one, right? Because they are identical, they have the same features. I just decide to pick one. Because if we look at it in all sincerity, Jacob was small at the time they were giving birth, or when the prophecy came. Jacob was small, Esau was small. They've not committed any crime, they've not done anything, they've not grown up to show their characteristics. So there was really no reason why one is preferable than the other in terms of character, in terms of many other things, right? So the point here basically is that it's just a sovereign choice that I want this person, and that is fine, because right. So I think it's a choice, it's a sovereign choice. It's not necessarily because one is better than the other. It's just like a sovereign choice that I decide to choose this one. For example, I can have numerous food at home, and I'm like, yeah, I decide I want to eat this. Why do you want to eat it? Well, I just decide I want to eat it. There's really no special reason. We should not give it so much of hype that this is why God chose this one, God is being impartial. Nah. In fact, when you look at his life, you probably want to choose this one. No, but that's just a joke, right? But you get the point I'm trying to make, right? Let's not make too much big deal out of the question. So God's choice was not preferential. God's choice was not out of partiality. God's choice was purposeful. So it was based on purpose, based on a particular assignment, and it was not necessarily because one was better than the other, and God just chose the one that was better than the other. So yeah, I believe you found something helpful in this video if you watched it to the end. If you have any other question, you can do all to ask. And if you have a contrary opinion, I also love to hear your thoughts on it. So do all to drop a comment. Don't forget to subscribe. Do all to subscribe. Do all to like. Do all to share this video with a friend. I can't wait to see you in the next one. Peace out.